My name is Joanna Hogue. I am a visual artist. I am Denver-based, but I grew up in the Midwest area, so around St. Louis, and then I actually did my MFA at SIUE, which is just across the river in Edwardsville. So in my day-to-day, I mentioned I'm a visual artist, but I'm primarily a designer as well. So I work in user experience design, which simply just means that I create digital experiences after I understand people's attitudes and behavior to make digital products that work for them and that they can use and that are easy to use. So it's a lot of fun. I guess something that kind of goes along with that and that goes with my art practice as well is that I'm a bit of a psychology nerd. So in my undergraduate, that was some of my coursework, and that really kind of informs both my design work and my art. Next slide, please. So in grad school at SIUE, something that I was really interested in, and the two pieces on the left are from this anatomist, was the work of a 16th century Belgian anatomist by the name of Andreas Vesalius. And so his work, I mean, like, as somebody who loves drawing, like, these particular plates are just like fascinating for me. They're kind of graphic, right? But they're so rich in detail and super, super interesting. But like at the time that like he was putting together this like seminal work, people still thought things like men had more teeth than women, right? So it was like really thinking about the body as like just like a new frontier. Like people didn't know things about their interiors, and so it was really sort of this body as new frontier thinking. At the same time, like I mentioned, I'm very interested in psychology and psychological experience. And I also looked at contemporary artists. So like the work of the artist over on the far right-hand side, Jenny Saville. So a well-known and prolific painter. She did these like huge sort of large-scale paintings and drawings of bodies. And there's really this sort of like imbued quality of just like this felt sense, right? You look at her pieces and you feel something. And this is just a depiction of mother and child. So in thinking about my work at SIUE, I was really interested in sort of using the body as like a foundational way to sort of bridge the gap between our sort of what our interiors, like our anatomical selves, and like the felt sense of being alive and our mental selves. Next slide. And so that really you can do the next one, kind of springboarded me into using like figurative and representational imagery as a starting point for exploring how can you evoke more through drawing. And so materiality especially played a role. So I do love drawing, but I also around this time started embroidering into the drawings so that they have this sort of like low relief quality. I want people to feel something when they look and to think about maybe at some point their own interiors. The piece on the right, which is called Totem, is sort of a composite or sort of surrealist like gathering of different figurative imagery, but at the same time, and it's kind of hard to see in this image, I've integrated writing into the pieces. The writing is like kind of crossed out and it's backwards and you can't enter into it. And in that way kind of is a bit of an allegory to our mental selves, right? These sort of things that we have running in the back all the time that are interior to ourselves and that we can't see. So bringing those two sort of pieces, the physical and the mental, into the same space to look at them. Next slide. And so this is another piece I worked on around the same time where I'm really interested in like relationship and thinking about a relationship not just with ourselves and our own bodies, but with others. So wanting to evoke a sense of touch and get the viewer to think about their own sort of body in relationship to others, right? We're very relational creatures, and so that's something that's on my mind a lot as I work on these drawings. And again, like materiality plays a role. So it's like, for me, kind of playing with materials like intaglio drawings that are made and sort of ripped up and then sewn back into the space of the drawing, along with like elements like snakeskin, which is also in this piece. Next slide, please. And so in thinking about bodies, over time, like my sort of train of thought shifted around 2020 to kind of think about aspects of my own embodied experience and what it means to live in my body in this day and age. Next slide. And so something that happened around 2022 in our sociopolitical environment was the overturn of Roe v. Wade. And this had a very salient and sort of negative impact on a lot of the communities that I'm a part of. A lot of people in my circles, are becoming parents. And so there's kind of a lot of thought over what does it mean to be a parent in this society? What does it mean to have or not have bodily autonomy in our society right now? And so from this sense of hopelessness, I really was trying to think about how to transform and transmute that in the space of the drawings I was exploring. And so this is a piece that, again, is incorporating figurative imagery and sort of surrealist qualities, but I was really thinking about the idea of motherhood as archetype, something that we place on a pedestal, and yet within our societies, within the US, it's like we don't put in place policies that would actually support people becoming parents. Things like, childcare and paid leave for maternity and paternity, leave essentially. So, I was just kind of thinking about like this quality, like these ideas of motherhood and, like the vacancy of that, but also at the same time, like the embodied experience of that, there being a lot of resilience and fragility sort of coexisting side by side. So a lot kind of spinning around in my head as I'm making these. Next slide, please. And so this is a piece where I'm again kind of thinking about and incorporating body-based imagery, but also thinking about and incorporating plants. So things like flowers, right, are something that we give to mothers on Mother's Day and that we associate with beauty. But, in looking at plants and researching plants, I was also drawn to how people over time have used abortifacient plants to control their own reproduction and their menses. And so this particular plant is one such plant that's been used. Next slide. And so with embroidery in some of the pieces, and pretty much in all of the pieces I've shown you guys today, another sort of like index that I'm drawing on is like thinking about embroidery as historically something that's been deemed women's work, right, or craft. It's something that is highly technical, very laborious, and not really looked upon as an art form. So for me, I'm kind of thinking about what does it mean to incorporate white thread on white paper, this sort of subtle, maybe unseen labor that maybe parallels a lot of the unseen labor of women and mothers and birthing people when they have children and raise them as citizens of our society. In my research too, I'm struck by things like the fact that, out of like any developed nation, we have the worst maternal mortality rate. Things like in researching, birth in this country, like understanding that Black women are 3 times more likely to die in childbirth as their white counterparts, right? These are facts about the society that we live in, and through drawing, I really hope to provoke dialogue and discussion about these issues so that we might come together and look at them. So a lot of the work that I've been focused on at Jentel has been around these issues and topics. So kind of looking at that, like societal, conceptual, these aspects I've been, explaining to you, but also thinking about like the other side of that, of like pregnancy and birth is this crazy embodied experience that like so much is happening, and there's so much joy as a part of that too. So a lot of sort of duality in what I'm looking at the moment, but I've definitely appreciated the opportunity to explore it. So yeah, big thanks to Jentel, the foundation, everybody who helps make this possible.